When I was little, actually little, I used to collect tadpoles. How many of you have seen tadpoles? If not, I brought some. You can take a closer look once we are done with the whole session. Tadpoles are tiny aquatic creatures, like fish, but they are not fish. You find them in ponds. In fact, they are the childhood of frogs or toads. Unfortunately, they don't get same attention as fish. You don't see kids asking their parents, "Mommy, can you buy tadpoles for my birthday?" You don't, right? And you don't find them in aquariums. So they don't have a value. But when I was little, I was really inspired by them. Because I found them to be interesting creatures. I used to have them in a glass jar, like this one, next to my bed. And I used to observe for hours and hours. I was mesmerized by the tadpoles. What I noticed in them was when they were growing into frogs, their tail, it shrinks. It shrinks. Now, I was starting to wonder why the tail shrinks. Now, if you take different animals, some of them, they have a tail for a reason. If you take cattle, they use the tail to chase flies. Geckos, when they get scared, they drop the tail so it wiggles like a worm so they can distract the predator. Also, some animals use it to maintain the balance, like monkeys, or those who have watched Avatar, the Navi people in Pandora. Tadpoles, of course, they need the tail to move around in water. But when they grow into frogs, they don't need the tail anymore because they have their legs to move in water on the land. So I was starting to realize the reason why their tail shrinks. But the question I had was, how does the tail of the tadpole shrinks? This question started bothering me a lot. So I really wanted to find out how the tail of the tadpole shrinks. I started reading about different types of organisms. I started reading about amphibians. I started reading about frogs. Yet, I did not understand how the tail of the tadpole shrinks. So I thought I had to dig deep into science. So as I was just growing into higher grades and getting closer to my O-levels, I was interested in science. So I was learning about the cell. I learned that there's a nucleus inside the cell that has DNA, which has the instructions to make who we are. I learned that there are other organelles inside the cell. The cell is the single unit that makes all the organisms. We have more than 100 trillion of them. I learned all this. Yet, I did not understand how the tail of the tadpole shrinks. So, then came to my A-level kids. So I wanted to do science. So I did botany, I did chemistry, and zoology. Paid special attention to that subject. In zoology, I learned about development biology. I learned that we start from one cell and then divide into many cells and then forms a ball of cells and then layers and then this entire organism. In fact, if we go back 10 months from our birthday, all of us, we were one single cell, right? Yet, I did not understand how the tail of the tadpole shrinks. So I thought I should go to university. And in university, I wanted to do cell and molecular biology. So I decided that as my major. In university, I learned more about DNA. I learned, like the structure of DNA, that DNA is made up of nucleotides. I learned about other molecules inside the cell. I learned how genes work. The genes has, they actually is a coding for different types of proteins. So many things. Yet, I did not understand how the tail of the tadpole shrinks. Now in the university, I came to my second semester. In the second semester, there was this class. It's called cell biology. So I took that class. And in that class, I had to do an assignment. Fortunately, we were able to select the topic for that assignment. So I thought of, I'm going to do this phenomenon. I'm going to study about this phenomenon. So I read a lot of papers. I read a lot of books. And finally, I was getting close to understanding how the tail of the tadpole shrinks. In fact, that happens because of a phenomenon called apoptosis. In Greek, that means programmed cell death. The cells in the tail, they are programmed in their DNA to digest themselves once the job is done. So when the frog develops, after the tadpole stage, the cells are starting to digest all the proteins and other molecules inside it, and the nearby cells absorb that. So cell after another, the entire thing disappears. We had apoptosis when we were in our mother's womb because we had webbed fingers. There was a membrane. But before we were born, all those cells went away. So we finally understood how the tail of the tadpole shrinks. But that led to another question. I was starting to wonder, if the cells can digest themselves by a program switch in the DNA, can we turn on that switch in cancer cells? Only in cancer cells? Isn't that the cure for cancer? But this was in college, and I knew I had to go to graduate school. Because to answer this question, I had to dig deep into the subject. So I applied to graduate school. But when you apply to graduate school, you had to write a personal statement. In addition to, providing them with your, other academic qualifications, that personal statement is very important. So I'm telling you, when you write your personal statement someday, don't Google for somebody else's personal statement. You write your personal statement. My personal statement was what you just heard, the story of the tadpole. I remember the professor who read my personal statement, he came and told me, I really enjoyed your tadpole story. That's why you're here. So after getting to graduate school, I was able to understand cancer biology. I was able to learn that there are genes that functions like the accelerator in the car. They ask the cell to divide. And there are genes that functions as the brakes in the car. They ask the cell, hey, stop. So you need to balance these oncogenes and tumor suppressors. Then only you have a regulated cell. So I was able to just gather a lot of knowledge about cancer biology and then contribute after getting graduated. I went to cancer research and contributed a lot in the knowledge I gathered. That simply started from my curiosity on the tail of a tadpole. Now, children, your parents, they too had questions. They too had questions followed by other questions. Maybe somebody had this question, how do I mimic the same specific frequency of sound that falls on the eardrum on a string of a violin or on a guitar? They had that question. And they are musicians now. Maybe somebody had this question, how do I make this product? How do I convince another person to buy this product? Because this product is going to add an value. How this product is going to make change somebody else's life. They are entrepreneurs now. Maybe somebody had the question, how do I move my body from point A to point B the most aerodynamic way so that I can go faster than others? They are athletes. So all your parents here, they had questions and they were going behind answers. And that's why they reached where they are now. I'm looking at you. You are curious, don't you? You have your own questions that you want to find answers, don't you? You do. Now I should tell you this. It's not easy to find answers to certain questions. I still have questions that I'm struggling to understand. For instance, like if you take birds, how do these different species of birds find that specific material to make their nest? And how do they create their nest in the same way as others in the same species? They haven't gone to engineering school, or like they are not architects. Or have you seen the bird parents teaching their the offspring how to make the nest? They don't. And another question I'm still struggling is bees. How do they get 120-degree angle in the hexagonal beehive without using a protractor? I will continue to find the answers. So I can tell you, if you have a question, you will not get the answer right away. But your question will take you a long way.